Jaden was 15 when he found himself truly alone. His mother, once a lively woman with a warm laugh, had lost her battle with cancer a year prior. His father had walked out long before that, leaving only a chain of broken promises and unpaid bills behind. The foster system tried to scoop Jaden up, but after bouncing between 3 homes in 6 months, he chose the streets over the instability. There, among cold sidewalks and echoing traffic, Jaden found something in clarity. He realized no one was coming to save him. And that meant if he was going to have any future at all, he'd have to build it himself. Not someday, right now. Every morning, Jaden woke up beneath the same broken billboard in Midtown. It advertised luxury condos starting at just $1.2 million. He'd brush his teeth at a public library, stash his belongings behind a fence, and walk 2 miles to the downtown tech center where free Wi-Fi leaked from the windows and a few staffers turned a blind eye to his presence. It was there that Jaden first laid hands on a secondhand Chromebook left unattended on a desk. Not to steal it, he wasn't like that. But when the battery icon blinked and the screen asked for a password, he instinctively bypassed it in under 10 minutes using tricks he'd learned from online forums. He wasn't proud of it, but it gave him access. From that moment, Jaden immersed himself in coding tutorials, YouTube lectures, and open source projects. He taught himself Python, HTML, JavaScript, whatever he could understand. The logic of code, the predictability of syntax gave him a sense of control the real world never offered. It was like a language no one could twist against him. He was fluent in it by 16. He'd even begun building simple games and apps for fun. His way of dreaming without sleeping. 1 rainy Thursday. As he sat under a diner's awning, sketching interface designs on a pizza box, he overheard 2 chauffeurs talking near the curb. They were waiting for their employer's daughter, apparently a girl named Amelia Kingston, who was visiting a private gallery nearby. Jaden had no idea who she was, but the name sounded familiar. Kingston. That was the tech billionaire who owned half the software patents on the market. The man was a legend in tech circles, and an impossible figure to most people in Jaden's world. Still. The name sparked something in him. He asked one of the drivers what the girl looked like. Why, you want to sell her roses or something? The man teased. Jaden just smirked. Nah, I'm gonna marry her. The 2 men laughed. Loudly. One even patted Jaden's shoulder with pity, as if the joke was all in good fun. But Jaden wasn't joking. He didn't know the girl, didn't even know what she looked like, but the absurdity of the claim was precisely what made it stick in his head. Marrying her wasn't about love, at least not yet. It was about becoming the kind of person who could marry someone like that not because of money or power, but because he'd proven the world wrong. Jaden didn't tell anyone else. But from that day forward, he started writing the words AMG in the margins of every notebook he used. His strange little code, his symbol of direction. His belief wasn't blind. Though Jaden knew he was starting from the bottom, and the odds were against him. So he began showing up at community coding events, sometimes lying about where he lived, often staying until every other kid had gone home. He asked questions no one else asked, stayed after to help clean up, and slowly built a reputation as that smart kid who just appears out of nowhere. At one such event, he met Mr. Lorenzo, an aging developer who once worked at Kingston Technologies before retiring. Lorenzo, impressed by Jaden's curiosity and humility, offered to mentor Jim informally at first. Then more seriously, Lorenzo taught him how to think beyond just code, how to pitch ideas, how to solve real-world problems, how to present himself. He also let Jaden crash in his garage during colder nights, never asking too many questions, just giving him space to grow. Jaden's first app idea came during a night of frustration. He'd seen a young girl, no older than 10, crying outside a shelter that had turned her and her mother away due to overcrowding. It haunted him. So he built an app prototype that allowed homeless individuals to view real-time updates on shelter space availability. He called it Open Door. It wasn't perfect, but when he presented it at a local innovation challenge, the judges were stunned, not just by the concept, but by Jaden himself. He was articulate, driven, and more passionate than any other presenter in the room. A local tech blog picked up the story. Jaden didn't go viral, but he did go visible. Amelia Kingston, for her part, remained oblivious. Her world was curated, digital, and distant from anything resembling real struggle. She went to a private school with iron gates and personal drivers. Her biggest worry was whether her parents would approve of her new boyfriend, a shallow, affluent junior whose father ran a hedge fund. The world Jaden came from didn't just feel foreign, it felt invisible. That is, until Amelia's school assigned all students 20 hours of community service after a local scandal. She picked a youth tech center because it sounded easy. She imagined herself sitting behind a desk, pretending to organize files while sipping coffee. What she didn't expect was to walk in on Jaden giving a lesson to a dozen middle schoolers, using a cracked projector and nothing but his voice to capture their attention. He didn't notice her at first. But she noticed him. There was something different about him. He didn't try to impress anyone. Didn't dress to please. Didn't care who she was. When she tried to correct him on a coding term she barely understood, he didn't get defensive. He just handed her the whiteboard marker and said, "Show me." She couldn't. That embarrassed her. But it also intrigued her. For weeks, she kept coming back. She said it was for her hours, but the truth was, Jaden fascinated her. He challenged her, laughed at her expensive shoes when they made her trip on a wire, teased her for not knowing how to use GitHub, and yet treated her like an equal when she actually tried. She was used to being admired. Jaden didn't admire her, he engaged her. He made her feel present. One day, Amelia asked where he lived. He said downtown, then changed the subject. She didn't press, but it lingered. The more she learned about him, the more she suspected there was something he wasn't saying. Eventually, she found out. Lorenzo let it slip that Jaden didn't have a family, or even a permanent place to sleep. Amelia was stunned. Not because he was homeless, but because he had never used it for pity. Everything he had, he earned. Every line of code, every ounce of respect, and despite all that, he never once complained. She began to question everything she thought she knew about strength. One day, Amelia jokingly asked him, "So what's the big plan? You're gonna run your own company someday?" Jaden didn't flinch. "Yeah, and I'm gonna marry a millionaire's daughter." She blinked. "What?" He smiled, half joking, half serious. "Told some guys that once kind of made it my life goal." She raised an eyebrow. "Anyone I know?" Jaden shrugged. "Maybe." Neither of them said anything for a long while, but the silence wasn't uncomfortable, it was charged, almost like they both knew something had shifted, and neither one wanted to break the spell just yet. Jaden hadn't arrived yet. He wasn't successful. He wasn't rich. He still spent most nights couch surfing and chasing grants, but the direction was there. The clarity was stronger than ever. He still wrote AMC in the corners of his notebooks. Not because he was obsessed with Amelia Kingston as a person, but because she had become, unknowingly, a symbol of his impossible promise. Not a goal to possess, but a reminder of what he believed no one else dared believe. That a homeless boy could one day stand next to the daughter of a millionaire and deserve to be there, and he wasn't done yet. Amelia Kingston had grown up in a world far removed from struggle. Her father, Daniel Kingston, was a tech mogul whose name echoed in boardrooms and stock exchanges. She lived in a modern palace with 20-foot glass windows, marble floors, and a rotating staff of assistants, chefs, and tutors. From the moment she could walk, Amelia had been taught to move with poise and speak with purpose. Her private school taught critical thinking, classical languages, and negotiation tactics before she even hit high school. Despite all this, Amelia didn't feel powerful. She felt managed. Her life was a carefully orchestrated production, and she was just one of its most polished actors. By 17, she had mastered the role. Socially untouchable, confident in any crowd, and distant enough to keep real emotions at bay. She dated boys who wore expensive watches and said all the right things, but it never felt real. Her father often said love was a luxury, not a requirement, and while she didn't want to believe that, no one around her ever challenged the idea. Love was performance. Attraction was transaction. And nothing ever lasted longer than it took to make an Instagram post. So when she first heard the story about a homeless boy claiming he would marry her, she laughed. It came from her driver, who relayed the tale with amusement. Kid with a backpack and holes in his sneakers just stood there outside the gates and said it with a straight face. "I'm gonna marry the Kingston girl," like he was announcing the weather. She scoffed. "Does he even know what I look like?" Doubt it. He didn't seem all that concerned with reality, the driver said with a chuckle. She rolled her eyes and forgot about it. Or at least tried to. But the story lingered not because she felt threatened or flattered, but because it felt so strange. Why would someone make a claim like that with such confidence? Why her, of all people? And who was he, really? She would never have given it another thought if not for her school's decision to implement mandatory community service. A PR move after a scandal involving one of the school board members. It required every student to complete 20 hours with a nonprofit organization of their choice. Most students grumbled and chose whatever required the least effort. Amelia followed suit and picked a downtown youth center that promoted technology access for underprivileged kids. She assumed she'd be answering phones or filing paperwork. Too serious. Her first day at the center was nothing like she expected. The building was small, with peeling paint and barely functional heating. Inside, a group of kids sat on folding chairs, watching a young man draw on a whiteboard with a half-dead marker. His jeans were faded, his hoodie frayed, and his shoes barely holding together. But the way he spoke firm, focused, precise made everyone in the room sit straighter. He was teaching them basic programming logic using cartoon metaphors and real-world examples. weaving humor into technical concepts so effortlessly it almost felt like magic. Amelia stood there, unnoticed, until one of the staff introduced her to the group. The young man turned to look at her and nodded. "You can take a seat. We're just starting a lesson on loops." His tone wasn't dismissive. It wasn't overly polite either. It was just flat, neutral, like she was anyone else in the room. Shay wasn't used to that. After the session, Amelia approached him. "You're the instructor." Sort of, he replied. "I'm just the one who shows up the most. I'm supposed to help out here for the next few weeks," she said, offering her hand. He didn't shake it, not out of rudeness. He just glanced down at his own hands, smeared with dry erase ink, and wiped them on his hoodie. "You ever taught code before?" "No, but I've taken a few classes." "Great. Then you can help explain functions next time." She was taken aback by how quickly he accepted her. Not because he was impressed, but because he didn't seem to care either way. He handed her a stack of notebooks to organize and went back to helping a child fix their login credentials. For the next few days, Amelia kept observing. She watched how he gave every student his full attention, never showing frustration, never brushing anyone off. He had a dry wit, often poking fun at his own mistakes, and he made kids feel like they were solving problems instead of just memorizing rules. When he was frustrated with a faulty laptop, he mumbled under his breath, then fixed it with a bent paperclip and tape. He never waited for help. He just figured things out. By the third day, she asked his name. "Jaden," he said. It sounded familiar, and something in her mind clicked. She remembered the story her driver had told her. "Wait, are you the one who said you'd marry the Kingston girl?" Jaden barely looked up. "Maybe." She narrowed her eyes. "That's me." He smiled slightly. "I figured." She couldn't tell if he was serious. "You don't even know me." "True, but I know who you are, and more importantly, I know who I'm gonna be." It was again that same confidence, almost casual, like he wasn't trying to impress anyone, just stating facts. Amelia wasn't sure whether to laugh or be offended, but in the end, she did neither. She just stared at him, unsure what to make of this boy who claimed ridiculous things, yet spoke like they were inevitable. In the weeks that followed, they began spending more time together working on projects, leading coding sessions, organizing materials. Slowly, she began asking more questions. Where did he live? Did he go to school? Did he have any siblings? Jaden dodged most of them. He talked about books, programming languages, movies, and philosophy, but never about his past. The more he avoided, the more curious she became. Eventually, she found out. One of the staff members mentioned that Jaden had no permanent address, that he'd been volunteering long before she arrived, that he sometimes stayed in a nearby shelter or on the streets when there wasn't space. The idea rattled her. She had known poverty existed. She had seen it through car windows. But she had never known someone who lived it every day, who smiled, joked, taught, and debated like nothing was wrong. Jaden didn't wear his struggle like a badge. He didn't talk about it, didn't ask for sympathy. If anything, he made you forget he was struggling at all. One afternoon, after a particularly intense project session, Amelia offered him a ride home. He declined. "Come on, it's late," she said. "Where do you live?" Jaden hesitated. "Here and there." She pressed him. "Jaden, you don't have to hide it." "I'm not hiding anything," he said. "You're just not used to someone being fine with less." She felt the weight of that. "But you want more, don't you?" Of course, he replied, "but I'm not ashamed of where I am. This is just one part of the story." Amelia didn't know what to say. She had never met anyone like him. In time, they developed an unspoken rhythm. He challenged her to think, to question, to earn her confidence, rather than borrow it from her last name. And she, in turn, challenged him to trust, to let someone see the parts he usually kept hidden. The moment that shocked everyone wasn't when they grew close. It wasn't even when Amelia defended Jaden publicly at a school event, calling him one of the most brilliant minds she'd ever met. The real shock came when she invited him to pitch one of his app ideas at her father's foundation, a place where young innovators were typically groomed from elite schools and family connections. Jaden walked in wearing the only clean clothes he had. He carried no degrees, no resume, just a prototype and a quiet fire in his eyes. When he spoke, the room listened, and when he left, even Daniel Kingston had to admit the boy had something rare. Everyone had expected a kid with no resources to crumble under pressure. Instead, he'd walked in like he belonged there, and maybe he did.